Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this afternoon's session of the meeting of Winchester City Council's Planning Committee, taking place in the Walton Suite of the Winchester Guildhall. It's Wednesday, I keep forgetting what the day is, the 13th of November. The time is 9:30. No, it isn't, it's 2 p.m. Sorry.
No fire in here.
We had a fire drill, not drill, this morning, and it's thrown me completely. My name is Councillor Jane Rutten, I got that right, and I'm chair of the Planning Committee. Around the table we have the other elected members of the committee, and we are supported today by our officers, Lorna Hutchings from the planning team, Daniel Lucas, our legal advisor, the case officers, which will change with the items, and Claire Buchanan from Democratic Services, who supports the committee and operates the recording equipment. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded to the Council's YouTube channel. Subtitles are available and advice on how to turn them on is set out on the website. Please can I remind everyone to ensure your mobile phones and any other electronic devices are on silent or preferably turned off altogether. In the unlikely event that it is necessary to evacuate the building, the fire alarm will sound. Please follow all the instructions given to you by our team. I hope you've looked at the handout provided on your chairs and on the information slides displayed as you walked in for further guidance about this meeting. To ensure the smooth running of the meeting, I ask that nobody calls out from the back of the room during the proceedings. In accordance with the public speaking protocols of the meeting, those who have registered to speak will be able to address the meeting for their allotted time. If there is any disruption of the proceedings and the committee is not respected, it may be necessary to temporarily adjourn the meeting. Finally, can I welcome members of the public to the meeting? Those of you who have registered to speak, I will call you forward when it is your turn to make your contributions. Members of the committee may ask you questions of clarification, so please remain at the microphone until after members' questions. The microphone is turned on by pressing the button on the base of the unit, and a timer will appear on the screen to remind you of your remaining time. So turning back now to the agenda. So we are at item 12 on your agendas, which is the application at Mount Pleasant in Byton. Full planning permission for the demolition of the existing property and remains of a bakery building and the building of two linked detached two-bedroom bungalows. And our presenting officer is Kat Wilson. Catherine, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to bring members' attention to a number of updates on the update sheet, starting at page 4 of the update sheet. So we've got a revised location and site plan, which just clarifies the blue line on the site plan, just here on the right-hand side, as being within the ownership of the applicants. Paragraph 8 of page 203 of the committee report refers to NPPF 203. The numbering has changed. It's actually NPPF 209. Wording is exactly the same. It's literally just the number that's changed. And then the reason for refusal for heritage issues has been removed from the decision, proposed decision. And the other changes, so reasons for recommendation and the text on paragraph 184 to do with the heritage impact, have been amended so that the proposal is assessed in terms of the impact on the balance of harm to a non-designated heritage asset rather than a designated heritage asset, which is a test of whether or not development represents public benefit or not. That, I think, is all. As I say, all the details are on those pages, but that, in summary, that that's all of the changes there. So I'll continue with the presentation. So the site is Mount Pleasant. It has an existing building on it, currently or lastly used as a dwelling, but the building was constructed in the 1820s as a national school. Here we've got a photo of it in 1915. National schools were run by Anglican Church as a sort of precursor to state primary schools. Here are the location plan. So as I said, on the right, the location plan, we see the red line of the site, and then the blue line denotes the land owned by the applicant. And on the left-hand side, we've got the proposed site plan. So the red dotted lines show, the L-shaped line shows the current property, and the rectangular line next to the road shows the site of the old bakery building, which has been demolished. And you can see that the proposed dwellings are linked in the middle by a shared archway. So here I have a closer up detail of the proposed site plan, just to show also the boundary treatments and the bank leading down to the road and down to the public footpath, which runs to the southeast of the plot. Here we have the proposed landscaping plan. So you'll see the area in white and sort of a brown grid pattern is to be hard standing and patios. Then on the left hand side we've got a widened access widened from what it currently is now, and then we can see where a number of trees will be planted and hedging along the boundaries as well. And here we have the proposed elevations. So this is the northwest elevation on unit 1, so that's the topmost unit. We can see here that there's inline solar panel, 12 panels of solar PV. They'll be recessed into the tiles on the roof. And again on the bottom, the southeast elevation, unit 2, 6 solar panels. And then we've got the southeast elevation on unit 1, and on the bottom we've got the northwest elevation on unit 2. And this is just to show the elevations as they sit together, and as the two separate dwellings are linked together. So again, we can see that the unit 1 is on the left hand side here and unit 2 is on the right hand side, and then we can also see the rear of those properties and the link between them. And if we have a look in the top diagram, you can see to the right hand side where the footpath sits, and the drop down in levels to the rest of the properties on that side of the road, and you can see it on the left hand side of the bottom diagram as well. So here we can see a closer up version of that, and then we've got the southwest elevation in its context at the topmost of the smaller diagram, and then we've got the bottom, the rear elevation of that. Then we've got the northeast elevation. So again, that's showing that in a larger scale and a smaller scale at the bottom. Then we have the proposed floor plans. So in the centre, this is where the archway is. So you'll see that the properties aren't actually attached in terms of their floor space, but we've got 2 bedrooms on these ground floor plans. And then we've got some proposed visualisations. So this is just giving an idea of what the site will look like from the road. So we can see the new access and all the trees and hedgerows. And then this is just from a little bit further down. And then this is looking down the hill, down Nettlebeds Lane towards the site as proposed. And then we've got the photographs here. So on the left-hand side, this is a direct view from Nettlebeds Lane. You'll see that there is the existing access, and you can see the positioning of the building within its plot. The right-hand side, this is from the northwest, and just showing some of the original features there, such as the roof and some of the flint and brick detailing. And again, this is a view from Nettlebeds Lane and from the southeast. So again, some of those roofs and some of the brick and flint detailing are original to the National School as it was constructed. And then this on the left-hand side is looking from the southeast towards the lane. So you'll see the other properties on the other side of the lane. And then the right-hand side is looking at the view of the southeast elevation. And then on the left-hand side, this is looking southeast towards the neighbouring properties on Byton Hill, at the junction of Byton Hill and Nettlebeds Lane. And on the right-hand side, you can see view from the rear of the plot looking over the fields that sit behind. And then finally, we've just got some views from the junction between Nettlebeds Lane and Byton Lane. So the site is actually defined by these trees here. We've got the public footpath which comes out, and then there's a bank which rises up to the site. And again, just on the right hand side, a slightly closer view of the site. And then we've just got a photo here of the entrance to the site from Nettlebeds Lane, and looking the other way, and then just having another look at the site there. So that ends my presentation. The recommendation is to refuse, subject to the reasons contained within the report, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We now turn to the public speaking, and we have first the ward councillor, Councillor Margot Power. You have up to 5 minutes, Councillor Power, as you know, and I'll leave it up to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I note in the officer's report the site is described as property. It doesn't actually quite represent the eyesore it has become. As can be seen by support from the parish council, it is not considered to be a heritage asset in the village. Now, my mission in life is to gain small dwellings in the countryside. All too often they are extended. The limitations of this site would, I think, preclude extensions to the proposed homes, and were that able to be conditioned, I would be delighted. At present, and I would also like to see these properties conditioned to prevent them being used for short-term holiday accommodation, but I believe we cannot do that at the moment. Perhaps you could check that with officers, Chairman. Turning to the reasons for refusal, MTRA 4, the extending the frontage. If we do not grant permission for these two properties, it will become yet another 5-bedroom house in a village, and we've got far too many of those already. The historic aspect of the building, I believe that condition has been removed. Regarding overdevelopment of the site, parking must be provided on site. This is a village with no regular bus service. You have the 240 twice a week. If you're looking at a 2-bedroom property, you are going to have at least 2 vehicles and possibly 3. This site is right on a junction, and we have to get those vehicles off the road. Regarding the amount of open space, I think the amount of open space that would remain to any occupants would be an absolute delight compared to the new council build housings that we are creating. It's a very open and light site, so I don't believe that condition should apply. Turning to the last condition, reason for removal, the biodiversity net gain, there is a comment on the planning website from Mr. Nick Cutler, one of our officers, saying that he believes the biodiversity net gain can be met by conditions. Now, as you know, I do love my bugs and beasties, and I do think it's important that we do achieve the BNG. And I'm hoping, Chairman, that a way can be found to approve this application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, do we have any questions of clarification for the councillor? Councillor Williams.
Thank you very much, Chair. I just wanted to see if you were able to expand on the need for smaller developments in Byton, and just sort of describe a little bit more about sort of the local area and the need for those smaller dwellings.
Yes, I can. Byton is seen as a very desirable village. It's very open, very light, very bright, and small houses are bought up and they are extended quite enormously. Villages suffer in socio-economic terms from too many people that do not work there. And I believe, I'm told, that one of the barriers to local businesses is that people of working age cannot afford to live there. And if we don't have small dwellings, we will not have people of working age living in these villages. The South Downs National Park have tried to stop current houses being extended. I have found those measures inadequate in far too many cases, and I would very much like to see that sort of restriction on smaller dwellings in our countryside outside the national park. But if you don't have young people in villages, they die. All we have in Byton is a pub and a village hall. Thank you.
Would you agree that these would be ideal for people to downsize into?
I'd be quite happy to live in them, Chairman. However, as we know, we cannot keep them on the open market as small dwellings and in use for tenants. I'd love us to be able to condition that they couldn't be used for holiday lets, but it appears we can't.
I think we might be able to find something. Can I just ask, in your contribution to the, you know, when you asked for it to be brought to committee, you said that there was a thought that one of them might have an agricultural tie. Is that not the case anymore?
Could I refer that to the agent and the landowner, Chairman, please?
Of course, thank you. Any more questions of clarification, members? No, thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Councillor Power. And so now we turn to the supporter and agent, Simon Packer and Henry McCowan. Yes, you've got to share your 3 minutes. So is one of you going to speak and the other be available for questions? You're both speaking. Lovely. Well, you've got the 3 minutes between you, so I leave you to sort that out between you. And the microphones are just switched on by pressing. Perfect. The timer will start when you start speaking.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, councillors. The application site, as you know, contains an existing bungalow. It is in poor condition. It visually detracts from the street scene, neighbours, local residents and the parish council and the local councillor, as you've heard, in supporting this application have all commented that it is an eyesore. In policy terms, the existence of the bungalow is important. It should be regarded as previously developed land, where national planning policies would encourage its redevelopment. Even applying policy MTRA3, which is permissive of infill dwellings within settlements such as Byton, the existing bungalow is an important consideration. It is not a greenfield site and therefore shouldn't be regarded as infill development. In replacing the existing property, the bungalows would sit comfortably within the cluster of tight-knit houses at the junction of Nettlebed Lane and Byton Lane. They would represent a density of 20 dwellings per hectare, which is considered appropriate to this context and should not be regarded as overdevelopment. Your landscape officer has concluded impacts are minor and negligible. The proposals have been designed as single-storey properties in a farm courtyard style. This is both to respond to their context, but again, as you've heard, also to provide smaller two-bed properties that the village desperately needs. They will utilise high quality local materials and will exceed all relevant building regulation targets for carbon emissions, primary energy and fabric energy efficiency, and understand the biomass boiler will be locally sourced. All technical matters have been addressed. There are no objections from the Highway Authority, Landscape Officer, or relating to drainage and flood risk. Matters relating to ecology and biodiversity net gain can be suitably conditioned, as confirmed by your Ecological Officer. Now pass across.
Just to say to everyone, we've been farming in Byton since 1952. This site was marketed for the potential for a large family home, and we bought it hoping to build two small two-bedroom homes. We've openly shared our plans and consulted with all of our neighbours, and there is 100% local support. We've made reference that it will join our carbon reduction, our biomass boilers, and ring main for all the heating, and it will be built to the highest ecological standards. We're very happy to accept any restrictions for any future development, and our ideal is that these cottages will be part of we have 6 in the village, all of which we're actually proud to say are lived in by people who live and work in the parish, 4 of them for us, and our intention is that these will also be let to people who are either working in the parish or on the farm or our car storage business, or the pub. Actually, we have a co-sharing in the pub. Very happy that they will not be holiday lets. And I would just like to underline that whilst there's been numerous developments replacing small cottages in the village, this will be the first pair of small cottages built since my family did 6 in the 60s. Very hope that you can support this application.
Thank you very much, and well kept time. Members, we've got questions for clarification for the you'll need that again there when we ask questions. Have you got any questions for clarification for the applicant? I have a question. So there was a question of an agricultural tie, at least on one of them, but I think that's not the case anymore. If you could switch the microphone on again.
We're very happy to accept an agricultural tie on one of them if that's what the committee would like to do. The only thing that we're saying is that, yeah, so we're not disingenuous at all. I mean, our real desire is whether they are working in the car garage or the pub or whatever, but it will be for local people. We do have a substantial farming business, continue to do so. We're actually advertising at the moment for a young couple to come and join the team. We've got a very old tractor driver who's wonderful, who's worked for us for 45 years, and to ask him to move on to us is abhorrent. He's lived in the village his entire life, so there is a need definitely for one anyway. But the second one, I think, you know, there are lots of local people who are doing lots of things in the village, yeah, we hope that's the way it goes.
Yes, that's very clear. Thank you very much. Any more questions? No? Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. If you'd like to return to your seats, if you could just, that's perfect. Thank you. Right. We turn back to you, Kat. Do you want to update us on anything before we go to questions?
Only just to clarify that in terms of assessment under the relevant local plan policy, so MTRA3 and MTRA4, MTRA3 does clearly state that its development will be permitted within a as infill development in a settlement without a defined boundary. So Byton is a settlement without defined boundary. The site is not within a row of continuously developed frontage. It's on the end of that that row of properties on Byton Hill. And so I just wanted to reiterate members that, you know, that's one of the main policies that it's been assessed on. And also just with regards to the reason for removing the reason for refusal for non-designated heritage asset, I've set that out in the update sheet. It's still considered to be a non-designated heritage asset. It's just that the balance of the harm of losing that asset versus potential fallback position, which would be A, to demolish the property, or B, to extend it under permitted development rights, because it's not on any kind of it's not in a conservation area, it's not a listed building. The balance tips more in favour of the permitted development situation, and it was felt that we probably wouldn't be able to sustain that reason for refusal. But I just wanted to make members aware that we do still consider it to be non-designated heritage asset, and if members were to allow the application, then we would want a condition to require that there's a photographic record made of what is there, so we've got that on record. Thank you, Chair.
Good, okay. Can I just ask, so you say it doesn't fall within the infill policy, but presumably it would fall within the replacement dwelling policy if somebody wants to put one dwelling, although there's already been another building that was on the site, which was the old bakery, is that right? That's been demolished.
Yes, I think that was a sort of ancillary building to when the building was in use as a school, I think. But yes, certainly you could knock it down, the main building, and replace it, although the current building has a gross external floor area of around 112 square metres. So that would be caught by policy DM3, small dwellings in the countryside, where any property with a gross external floor area of 120 square metres or less can only extend by up to 25% of the existing floor print. So in actual fact, any extensions under that policy would be quite limited. But yes, you could, in theory, knock it down and build a new dwelling there under that policy.
Councillor Williams.
Thank you very much, Chair. I just had just to clarify. So the fallback position is if we refuse this, could well be that the site is still able to be developed, but it would be a single larger dwelling rather than two smaller dwellings.
Yeah. Yes, it would be a single, still small dwelling because of the current footprint. But yes, you wouldn't be able to, if you wanted permission, if you wanted to build a second dwelling, that would need planning permission. But the replacement of this current small dwelling with another small dwelling would be represented to be the fallback position.
Then one more, if I may, sorry. So in that fallback position where there is another dwelling, would then, I'm hypothetically speaking here, would then, if that dwelling is in place, that single development under permitted development rights, would the infill policy still apply for a further application for a secondary dwelling, or would that sort of be still on the end of the row? Sorry, I'm speaking hypothetical, so it may be that this is irrelevant because we have to consider the planning application for us. But I just think it's useful to know what the fallback position is if we refuse.
I'm not sure. I don't have that policy to hand, and I can't.
Yeah, Chair, I'll pick that up because yes, you could have one house there which would have to be a replacement property. So hypothetically speaking, they could build that to the sort of more northern side, and then they could come back for a planning application for infill, but we'd have to decide whether it was really in accordance with the spirit of the policy, because it talks about continuous road frontage. But yes, we would then still be assessing that one additional one under MTRA 3, and so then it might still fall foul of some of the contentions in that policy. I just wanted to say as well that is your primary policy. It's in the development plan. So if there's anything else that you feel you want to take into account, it would have to you'd have to place significant weight on it to outweigh what the report is saying in respect to the failings on MTRA 3. I know there's been a little mention of unmet need for small dwellings in the area. The applicant hasn't made the case for that, and I do need to point that out. So there isn't an evidence base within the application to demonstrate that that would be an outweighing factor. However, members can consider what they've heard in front of them today and decide how much weight you want to put on that, bearing in mind that we would be looking to outweigh a development plan policy, I think primarily. And it would be reasonable to remove short-term holiday lets, I think, as a condition.
Interesting. Thank you. Councillor Langford-Smith.
Thank you, Chair. The gentleman presented earlier and said that he is looking to develop these properties potentially for workers, for farm workers. Is it feasible that we could condition that it had an they both had an agricultural tie and would then comply with MTRA 4?
Chair, I don't believe that to be reasonable, because in order to consider agricultural works dwelling, there really is quite high tests in terms of financial need and functionality. So just to restrict it to that without any basis, I think would be really quite unreasonable. So I wouldn't recommend that we did that. And again, it's about looking at MTRA 4 in 3 in the balance of those issues, rather than we'll try to manipulate this to meet another policy by putting on some restrictions which hasn't been assessed. The case hasn't come forward, so it wouldn't really be right to do that.
Thank you, Lorna. Councillor Laming.
Thank you. That was really what I was coming around to, the agricultural tie part of it. Because
Okay, well, that's been answered.
That would allow us to have one property under agricultural tie. And then the
I
other
think
one to
that's
be
been
as an
answered,
infill.
Councillor Laming.
Yes, I know.
Yeah, thank you.
I get a point.
Any more questions? Councillor Small.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I know we've had something similar before where we've shown that because of public support, we had an exception to MTRA 4, I think, at the time. Does that still apply to this policy, MTRA 3? Can't say it all in one go.
Are you referring back to the application earlier in terms of community support? Or are you thinking of a different application altogether? Again, it's not part of this planning application. That the community support has been tested through the advertisement of the planning application, with the parish council coming forward, Council Power coming forward, and the support letters on the application as well. But it's certainly not a community sort of led scheme, and it also wasn't a site put forward in the sort of the search for sites, as far as I got down the document I've just been looking at either. So that was another way to allocate this site, but Byton remains as an MTRA 3 infill settlement in the new local plan as well, so that they haven't identified any other housing needs to make a change to policy.
But as we know, it has the support of the parish council, which doesn't happen that often, does it? Let's face it. Okay, any more questions, members, to our officer? Okay, so debate. Councillor Williams.
Thank you very much, Chair. This is very difficult because I really want to support the application, but the planning policy is sort of quite restrictive for us. That said, the public support, you know, as Councillor Rutter has just said, in regards to the parish supporting this, it is quite strong and quite rare, and there are public support as well from the ward councillor, but also a couple of people who've written in support as well, and I'd just like to also consider Councillor Power's acknowledgement of the area and the need for small dwellings. I think that's noted, despite we not having the evidence that has been sort of put forward from the applicant. So I'm quite torn on this. I think I will lean towards supporting it because there is a need in these rural villages in order to continue life of volunteers, the whole community going forwards, of younger people moving in to affordable properties, where at the moment they are quite restrictive in who can move there and who can afford to live there. So I'm leaning towards supporting this. I think though we would need conditions on preventing it from being a holiday let, so that's quite welcome, and potentially the removal of permitted development rights to stop these smaller dwellings then becoming larger ones in the future, if that would be acceptable.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. I think that would also be covered by policy anyway, the small dwelling policy that was referred to earlier. Councillor Clear.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Williams, because you picked me to the post and took my exact words. For the same reasons as Councillor Williams, I am going to support it.
Thank you. Councillor Small.
Yes, I'm in agreement with Councillor Williams and Claire. And also just wanted it noted, there's been no objections to this, which again is quite unusual.
Councillor Laming?
Yes, I'm inclined to support this, particularly after the additional points that Councillor Williams put in. But I'd also like to see an agricultural tie put in on at least one of the properties.
We'll see if that's possible. Councillor White?
I suppose we're balancing up the fact that it's not directly infill, but with the need for the 2 to 3 bedroom houses and perhaps more affordable housing. But I believe the biodiversity net gain is not currently met, so I think we might need to consider
That
how
could
we
be conditioned.
condition that. Yeah.
There are quite a few conditions that I would be proposing in a minute. Any more contributions to debate? If perhaps I could put my contribution in. So I went to see this site yesterday. It's quite a long drive, going down to Kirchridge and then up to Byton. But I'm glad I went because it was really striking. I went to expecting to see this cute little old school building. In fact, it's a tumble down old, and it's clearly been used as other things for a long, long time. And whilst I am the first to leap on the retention of non-designated heritage assets, in this case, I suspect that it would just fall down next week anyway. And I think that if we could put in a condition as suggested by our case officer, that a full record, photographic record, be made of the building so that we know what was there. Sadly, I don't think it can survive, even if you wanted to restore it and slightly extend it, you really couldn't, because you would never meet modern standards of anything, and I can't imagine that it would be possible. However, I think what is proposed is, again, it's an on paper thing, isn't it? But actually on paper you could say yes, no, I respect entirely that the officer's recommendation, but I don't agree with them in this case. And I think that Councillor Williams teased out the potential planning, progress that could have happened if we turned this down. So the fallback position, if we turn this down, would be that the existing building would be demolished anyway, because you can do that under permitted development rights, and it's an existing dwelling in the countryside, so you could replace that, and then, as you know, put it to one side, and then you've got a space to infill, and so you could still put, and they'd be not necessarily 2 small dwellings. At least with this application here in front of us today, we have control. We can put in conditions. If we decide that we are going to respect local views, that these houses are needed, that these small dwellings are needed, and that they will be provided, and we can condition the way in which they are used and the way in which they are built and everything else. I think that respects the spirit of our local plan, and also respects the wishes and the expressed desires of our local community as well. So I think we'll go to the vote, and then we will discuss the conditions before we vote again. Is that agreeable, members? Okay, so this application is recommended for refusal. Can I see those in favour of refusing this application? And those against? And abstentions?
Oh, 1. 8 for 1 abstention.
8 to go against the refusal and 1
2 or
abstention.
1 abstention.
1 abstention.
Right.
Okay,
So
we need to look at reasons for granting it, and also then the conditions that we want to attach to it before we vote again. So my reason for supporting this is that that it meets an unmet need for smaller dwellings, and we do define smaller dwellings in our own local plan as being under 120 square meters. So I think that it's clear that in this case, given the fallback position, that I am satisfied that that is a sufficiently strong need, and also the demonstrated local support through the decision of the parish council to support it and the local councillor to support it. But is that going to be?
was just getting it clear in my mind, Chair, in terms of whether we're looking at material considerations or other policies that you think might perhaps accord with better. But just for the minutes, Claire, which she's taking now, I think your primary reason you're outweighing MTRA 4 in terms of the character issues with it not being continuously built up frontage is the unmet need for small dwellings, but that's based on representations that you've heard today, sort of long-standing representations about that in terms of the Byton as a sort of a unique rural village, and there's sort of limited opportunities as well really for provision. And also need for small dwellings as defined by the local plan policy DM3 in respect of having houses that's under 120 square metres. So that's your sort of primary reason there. And you did also look at fallback position because, you know, toying with the idea that it could potentially be a future infill site and the fallback position for the replacement. But the future issues have no weight, but the fallback position was more relevant. So I think in summary that we're outweighing the development plan concerns of MTI 3 on those material considerations. Okay, good. And when you're ready, shall I go through conditions? And
Yes, please. Do you want to go through conditions and then we'll see if there's anything else we need to add in?
Okay. Thank you. So we would have your standard time limit and clarification of the approved plans, and then requests for samples of materials prior to construction of those surfaces, normally prior to commencement conditions.
We did wonder if we could request that materials could, where possible, reflect the former heritage building that was on site. So I noticed that the base of the dwellings is brick, but perhaps it could be brick and flint, something like that.
It's not something I would suggest goes in a condition, but the case officer's listening, and when we get those samples in, then we can make sure it does respond appropriately. If you felt particularly strong, we could put an informative on there, but it's up to yourselves. Yeah. So we've got our water efficiency nutrients condition, which is a prior to commencement one as well. So they have to send some more details in that respect. Details of hard and soft landscaping works along with the finished floor levels and contours of the site. Yeah, so that's the soft landscaping works as well. And then an implementation condition to ensure they get it gets planted in accordance with the plans. I've already mentioned details of levels. Oh no, that's not right. Lighting plans, things like that, positions of illuminance, direction, that sort of thing to minimise impact. And then we've got our biodiversity net gain conditions. The application has dealt with biodiversity net gain, and so the enhancement plan would come in post approval. And there could potentially be some other biodiversity net gain. We've just got to this sort of stage now where we're making sure we get the right suite of conditions. So there could be a couple of other ones there. And then we've also got recommendations for ecology enhancements. Then we have our code for sustainable homes conditions, ensuring that it meets, I suppose, the most up-to-date standards of building regs. And lastly, we have
include electric charging points.
It's a separate condition about the performance of the house rather than electric charging points, but we could request that as well.
Can we add electric charging points?
Yeah, we can ask for details, that's covered actually in parking. Yeah, so when we ask for car parking layout, we can sort of say, and details of electric charging points, which would be in accordance with our, as it currently stands, the air quality plan, which specifies what is the right type of charger. So we could add that in. Then, yeah, no short-term holiday lets. That would just be a blanket, you can't do it sort of approach. Photographic records of the non-designated heritage assets. And then the construction environment or construction management plan asking where vehicles are parking, materials are stored, etc. And we also have a condition in respect of Byton Footpath 3, which will be generated by the county council, so that we can they have to confirm that there's no installation of shrubs or hedging within the sort of right distances of the footpath. So that's just a procedural thing, really. That's all I have I would have recommended, apart from removal of permitted development rights, I think, because it's a fairly tight site there, isn't it, and they're spread quite across the building, and respect to the small dwellings issues as well.
Councillor Laming, did you have a suggestion?
Yes.
Oh, you want the agricultural tie?
The
I don't.
agricultural tie on one of the properties.
I would just strongly recommend against that. It's a legal agreement as well, and I don't know if we in order to do that, we would have already had to pre-agreed an extension of time to deal with that. But also it's complex, and I do remember we've done this before for this particular land ownership for agricultural workers twice, and in the end the application got withdrawn. But so I just don't think we have any evidence base whatsoever to put that on there, and that's not the reason that was given just now in why you want to approve the application. So I just would strongly suggest that is not included.
Good, thank you very much. Okay, so with those conditions as outlined by our officer, can I see all those members who are in favour of approving this planning application, please?
Unanimous, Chair.
All members. Splendid, thank you very much. Right, we will shortly be moving on to the final item on our agenda. We just need to change the presenting officer, so thank you. There we go. Right, we now move on to item number 13 on our agendas, which is at the Spinney 100 Acres Road, Wickham, in Hampshire. And our presenting officer today is Ethan Townsend. So over to you, Ethan. Thank you.
There we go. Sorry. Good afternoon, members. Sorry about that. Today I'll be presenting you the application at the Spinney at 100 Acres Road in Wickham and Fareham. As the proposed description states, it's for a new 2-storey porch, 2 new gable dormers to the front elevation of the existing house and also on the front elevation of the garage. And also there'll be a new flat roof dormer to the rear. So first you have an aerial of the site. As you can see, the residential dwelling is to the east of 100 Acres Lane, surrounded by other residential dwellings to the north and south. To the west, over here, you can see this is ancient woodland, which is also designated as part of the South Downs National Park. To the north, we have a public right-of-way. This is just a close-up view aerial of the site. So as you can see, it is surrounded by other residential properties. To the east, you have the Birches here. To the north, you have Westerly, and to the south, you have Silverley. Obviously, the application site is the one within the red line. So here now, I'm going to walk you through the proposed site plan. It's easiest, I'd say, to start with the front. So here we've got a 2-storey front extension, which will have a gable roof. You have 2 eyelet dormers on the front of the property as well, which are proposed, which are basically small dormers. Here to the side of the house where the garage is, hopefully if you can see my mouse, you can see there's 2 proposed dormers here, which are fairly traditional style pitched dormers. And then to the rear of the garage here, there's going to be a flat roof dormer, which is similar in style to the rear dormer on the existing house, which is over here. Now I'll walk you through the proposed elevation. So as you can see from the front elevation, centre on in the property is the proposed 2-storey front extension. There will be some gable glazing at first floor level, but obviously at ground floor level it's going to serve a porch. As you can see, there's 2 eyelet dormers which are pretty much equidistant of the proposed front porch. Then to the side here, we've got 2 traditional style dormers proposed in the roof of the garage. Next, just taking you to the side. So as you can see, here is the proposed 2-storey porch extension. The materials to the side will match the existing house. So we'll have render on the side and tiled roof to match the existing property. This is the eyelet dormer here, so it's a fairly modest protrusion with matching materials again. Then to the rear of the garage building here, you can see the flat roof dormer, and to the front you can see the proposed more traditional style dormers. Then this is the proposed rear elevation of the property. The only proposed works at the rear is this flat roof dormer here, which is fairly similar in style to the existing flat roof dormer on the existing property. This rear dormer will serve the garage, which first floor will become an annex with 2 windows and fairly centrally within that dormer. And finally, just taking you to the other side elevation, so you can see yet again the protrusion and the depths of the proposed dormers. So this here is the proposed rear dormer, flat roof. You can't really make out the traditional dormers on the garage, I'll give you that. But on the front here, you can see the proposed front 2-storey extension and the eyelet dormers proposed within the roof. And I will note as well, there is a slight overhang for the proposed front 2-storey extension. That's just to potentially help limit any upward travel of light. Now we're moving towards the proposed ground floor plans. So as you can see, at ground floor level, the only change would be the small increase in footprint from the proposed 2-storey front extension. So at ground floor, it's going to be a porch, and the width is, I think, the depth, sorry, is 1.635 meters, and the width is going to be rounded up to 6 meters. And then at first floor level, you can see that there is obviously alterations to the roofs. There's going to be some more floor space within the roof of the property, and they're going to utilise floor space within the garage. But you can see here that this is where the proposed eyelet dormers are going on the front. This is the proposed 2-storey front extension, and then they're obviously going to utilise new roof space, the roof space within the existing garage. This is just a visual of the proposed development. It's unfortunately I only have one of the front of the property, but obviously that's where the majority of the works are going. But yet again, it just helps you visualize what the proposed eyelet dormers will look like, what the proposed 2-storey front extension will look like, and what the dormers in the garage would look like as well. Now we're just going to move on to some photographs of the site. So I'll take each one in turn. So the first one on the top left is mainly actually looking at towards Silverley, the neighbouring property. This is Silverley here on the right. This is the access track dividing the neighbouring property and the application site. And to the left, you can actually see my vehicle just parked outside the gates. So the actual application site is somewhere to the left here. On The picture on the top right just shows the front boundary treatment at the existing property. So at the moment, it's not entirely visible from the road when you're looking at in this direction. The third one on the bottom, it just is a photo of the access track between the neighbouring property to the right over here and the application site to the left here. These photos are actually just taken mainly of the access track, and it was just trying to see the relationship between the neighbouring property and the application site. So I think the best one to look at is this one. So here on the top right is the existing pool building of the application site. So as you can see, there's hedges along here. The dormer window would be going to the rear, the proposed rear flat roof dormer would be going on this elevation here. And then if you look at the bottom here, this is at the end of the access track, looking towards the road. You've got Silverley on the left, the application site on the right. This building here is the existing pool building, and the proposed flat roof dormer would be going on the roof of the garage, which is fairly hard to see in the photo, but it would be going here. Finally, we've got some more photos of the actual application site. So in the top left, this is the existing garage over here, and you've got the application site here. In the top right, this just shows what the front elevation of the existing property looks like. So it's a fairly, suburban styled property. To the rear, you can see that there's, to the bottom left, you can see the rear elevation of the property. So this is the existing rear dormer on the top here, and then this is the pool building in the bottom here. And then, in the bottom right, there's more angles showing the pool building on the left here, the garage here, the rear dormer, and the rear of the application site, application dwelling. And then these photos are just photographs taken from the neighbouring property, Silverley. So in the top left, this is on the inside of their garden, is looking towards the existing garage building. There would be dormers placed on the front of this building over here, and a flat roof dormer placed on the rear here. In the top right, this is also just looking from the neighbouring property's garden towards the application site. Similarly, in the bottom left, you can see that there is a picnic bench which would be visible potentially from the proposed flat roof rear dormer, but this picnic bench is sited slightly further away from the main dwelling house. As you can see from the bottom right, this is the distance really from the main dwelling house of the neighbouring property to the picnic bench. So thank you for listening to my presentation. To conclude, I've recommended the application for approval as the proposal complies with local plan policies as set out within the officer's report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ethan. We now turn to the public contributions. So first we have Sarah Day, the objector. Good afternoon. You will have 3 minutes from when you start speaking, and the microphone is turned on by pressing the button on the base.
Thank you. This is an already overdeveloped site in size and scale. Over trebled in size from the original bungalow they purchased, slide 1. The applicant is now attempting to extend still further. Policy DM16 of the local plan considers site design criteria, whereby development will be permitted provided it responds positively to the character, appearance and variety of the local environment within and surrounding the site in terms of its design, scale and layout. Side 2. This is our location. You have to ask yourself the question, if the applicant had applied all of this, slide 3, at the initial stage back in 2014, would it have all been approved? Let me run things through you so far. They are: raised the roof of the original brick bungalow, built a front single-storey extension and a rear single-storey extension, added a dormer to the rear with a Juliet balcony, added Velux windows to the front plus side windows to the first floor, and this building was all then rendered, which changed its appearance completely away from the brick bungalow that was there before. This was then followed by a new double garage, an indoor swimming pool complex with a linked glazed corridor to the house in 2016. A roof canopy followed that to the back of the property the next summer, and then they also built an office and a gym in the remaining part of the back garden. And they've also put in a full width brick paved driveway, complete with surrounding metre-high neon lights at very regular intervals all around the perimeter, which turn blue on occasions. Light intrusion all around. Policy DM15 of the local plan considers local distinctiveness. It states that developments should respect the qualities, features and characteristics that contribute to the local area. Slide 4. Slide 5. Does this urban style design show respect for the beautiful locality adjacent to the South Downs National Park? We share an entrance. Slide 6. Being prevented from leaving your house while enormous lorries deliver steels and roof joists, amongst many, many other loads over the years, have become a massive problem. And I can also speak for the yoga business that is located down the driveway, whereby on many occasions her clients haven't been able to arrive or leave, causing utter chaos. Together with 10 years of noise and disruption, it has been at times unbearable. The pool complex was only ever approved on the amended condition that a living wall was erected to screen the structure from neighbours. Slide 7. It was permitted just 40 centimetres from the boundary. The living wall has never materialised. This photo was taken last week. We spent 5 years attempting to get this erected to no avail. Enforcement were useless, and Mrs. Pinnock, I am sure, will remember the case. Hence, why should we believe that any of these new amendments to this next proposed build be any different? They will be similarly ignored. The amended plans state low transmittance glass. What happens when they don't use?
I'm afraid that's the end of your 3 minutes. I'm so sorry.
Can I just finish?
Well, have you got one sentence?
Who will enforce this? The visual intrusion of such an enormous 2-storey glass structure spread across 5.8 metres.
I think we've got the gist of what you're saying. Thank you so much. That was very informative. If you could just pause a moment. No, I'm afraid you can't say anything on.
This is what we have to put up with every summer.
Right. Okay.
Comes straight across our patio.
So you can report noise problems to environmental health.
We have, and they've come out. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
They won't. It's not loud enough.
Right. Members, do we have any questions of clarification for our objector? Ms. Day, thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Now we have the Parish Council representative, Councillor Sandy Phillips-Lee.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Councillors.
Good afternoon. Thank you. You have 3 minutes when you start speaking, and the microphone's already on. Thank you.
My name is Sandy Phillips-Lee. I'm a parish councillor for Wickham and Knoll Parish Council. I visited Mr. and Mrs. Day, who reside in the property adjacent to the Spinney, to see firsthand the issues for concern. The case was also brought to Parish Council Planning Committee on the 12th of September, and we objected to this application for the following reasons. Policy: small dwellings in the countryside. This site exceeds 25% of its original size. To date, the following has been permitted: garage extension, single-storey side and rear extension, demolition of existing garage and workshop, double garage and pool building with glaze linked to house, raising of roof, front and rear single-storey extension, dormer to the rear with Juliet balcony, Velux windows to the front, first floor side windows and roof canopy. Incidentally, it was stated that no further building would be granted on the site after the application was approved in 2016. All the above has caused constant background noise for the neighbours. It's also close to the boundary wall, some 40 centimetres, and there's been continuous building works since the property was purchased in 2014. Policies: local distinctiveness, site design criteria and rural character. I believe the past and current proposals go against all 3 policies. The overbearing size, unsympathetic design and appearance and cramped layout does not respond positively to the character, appearance and variety of the local environment. Crucially, the neighbours have had to watch slowly over time this property turning into an eyesore, an albatross, while time after time these applications are approved. It appears the owners are gaining approval by stealth, trickle feeding new applications with appropriate and strategically staged time gaps. The whole picture and site needs to be reviewed before any further planning applications are considered, let alone permitted. Loss of privacy. The application has a detrimental effect on the neighbouring properties, infringing on privacy. The proposed window provides unrestricted views onto the neighbour's garden. Lack of compliance with the planning authority. A previous planning condition has not been met, so there's no confidence any future planning conditions would be honoured. The planting of a living wall was a previous condition, and to date this has not met any condition standards. There's a half-hearted attempt to grow climbers against the new extension wall, but plants appear to be in very shallow earth with a concrete base and no hope of healthy growth or coverage. Finally, Ethan, you'd make a good wedding photographer. You can make anything look attractive. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you for keeping to your 3 minutes. Members, do we have any questions of clarification for the Parish Council representative? Councillor Williams?
I just wanted to clarify the conditions that you were referring to. Was it just the hedgerow condition that you're referring to? Yes, the living
Yes,
wall.
that was the one specifically because it was a condition because that whole extension that forms the swimming pool is a particularly nasty view for the neighbours, and they were told to plant a living wall. Now, having had a good look at it, I was able to. They've planted on concrete with a tiny bit of earth. They're very lucky if even ivy can grow on there, and as you can see, it really isn't having any effect.
Thank you very much. Any more questions? No? Thank you very much indeed, Your Majesty. Thank you. And finally, we have the supporter applicant, Giordana Burns. Welcome. Please come forward. You also have up to 3 minutes, and the timer on the screen will start when you start speaking. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, my name is Giordana Burns from Axis Architecture, and I'm the architect who designed this application. I can't introduce the whole project. If possible, to have the first slide up, that will, that's the second one, but yeah, thank you. This will just show you a comparison between the existing property and what we are applying for. The client came to us with 2 requirements. They had a very strong need because their daughter is disabled and require full-time assistance from a nurse. And so they needed to allocate the garage for an annex so that this nurse could have a living-in space. And then the second requirement was, at the moment, if you look at the existing photograph, you can't see the front door. That's actually recessed inside on the left-hand side of the gable end that you can see. So what happens is every time that somebody approaches the property, they can't find the front door and they knock all over the place. So they wanted a porch, and we came up with this design. We've tried to, the site is not within the South Down National Park. However, we have addressed all concerns and redesigned it so that there is an overhang sufficient. The glazing is also low transmittance, and we have addressed as much as we possibly could to make sure that the proposal is inoffensive and it actually improves the site. Not to mention that the site is also not really visible from the outside, so we're really only talking about the side that's visible from the neighbors. Another thing to mention, if we could have the second slide, please. There's been a lot of complaints about the site being developed. My client, he's away, he couldn't join me, but he sent a number of comments on the right-hand side that you could read. I won't have time, but the gist of it is nothing has been done without planning permission. Everything that's been built on that site has planning permission or is part of permitted development rights. The local authority has been consulted on everything that they've done with regards to the planning policies that were raised. They were discharged. Things like living walls take a long time. You plant it, you monitor it, you look after it. and it takes 10, 20 years for it to actually manifest. But the client is very keen to keep good relationships with their neighbors and to address everything and do things properly, so to comply with all the local planning policies. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and you kept well within the time. Members, do we have any questions for clarification for the architect? Nope. Thank you. That was very clear. Thank you. Right. Ethan, is there anything you want to add before we go to questions, please?
The only thing I will add is with regards to the living wall. Obviously, that was a condition of the previous application, and we can't really focus on that under the scope of this application. We really have to focus on what is being proposed here, which is the dormers and the porch. So that's all I'll add.
That's clear. Okay, members, questions on the report, please. No questions on the report. So we move to debate. Who would like to start off with debate? Councillor Williams.
Thank you very much, Chair. I have obviously listened quite carefully to the objections to this application. There seems to be obviously disagreements with previous planning applications and conditions imposed. And as Ethan has just mentioned, we have to view this planning application as is. We aren't able to take into consideration enforcement issues or previous issues in regards to conditions not being met on in regards to planning applications. I also heard the objections in regards to the floor space in regards to DM3, but I'm quite satisfied that's been addressed within the report. In that, as the local plan came in, the property is 300 square foot, so DM3 doesn't apply in that case, and I think that's quite clearly stated in the report. So I'll be supporting the planning application. I do still understand that there are then impacts that have been going on outside of this planning application, and would encourage again reporting to environmental health in regards to the noise issues, as it's not a planning consideration with the built environment. So I'll be supporting the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Any more? Then we move to the Councillor Clear.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we're focusing on this application and this application only, but I find this actually rather overdevelopment on this site, and I somewhat feel is overbearing as well. So I'm thinking, I'm not actually saying yay or nay if that's allowed at this present time, but I do think it's too much on that site, as that site is now, and it's been extended. Obviously, we've heard that time and time again. I think we've now reached the stage when it is overdevelopment and overbearing.
Perhaps I could contribute before we go to Councillor Laming. I too have listened very carefully to the neighbours' concerns, and I can understand them. And as he said, please do report the noise issue again. But we are looking at this application as is. However, we do have to take into account the cumulative impact. However, I've looked at the size of the site and the surroundings and the general, situation of the house, and I don't believe that this is overdevelopment. Far from it. It's a large site. It's a large house. The other houses in the neighbourhood are of a similar size, although perhaps not quite as large. And I'm very pleased that the owners have brought in an architect to properly design and to bring together what has been in the past, I suspect, a mismatch of various bits of extensions and so on. Just perhaps given their personal circumstances, one can understand why, suddenly they've needed to put in an extra extension, a ground floor bedroom, whatever. So I recognise that in the past, conditions like the living wall are not necessarily fully grown yet, and I would hope that the applicant will perhaps look again at reinforcing the planting on that wall to meet that condition from before. But as I say, we're looking at the application that is before us, and we're looking at the existing house that is before us. It hasn't been a small dwelling since 1989. And I am content to accept the officer's report, and I will be supporting this application. Councillor Laming, your contribution to debate, please.
Thank you. Looking at this and looking at what's been going on over a long period of time, I'm coming round to slowly thinking that this is overdevelopment. And although it is a big site and there are reasonably sized houses in the area, I am concerned that the line has to be drawn somewhere, and I'm considering drawing it here.
Okay, well, if there's no more contributions to debate, we will move to the decision. So this application has been recommended for approval. Can I see those in favour, please?
7, Chair.
Those against? 1,
No, 2.
2. Beg your
2,
pardon.
Chair.
2. And no abstentions. So that application is approved. Thank you very much. And that's the end of today's planning committee. Thank you.